Okay, so we're following this setup Git. We just downloaded and installed the latest version of Git, and then next we're going to set up the username and an email address. So I'm going to go back to my GitHub tutorial for today, or lesson for today. So one thing we can do is go to a terminal, and doesn't matter right now where your working directory is, but you can type which git, and it will show you where that git command is. It should be something similar to what I have. And then you can type git version, and it will show you that we're using git 2.16.2. So you should have something similar as well. So I'm gonna do this. So we want to, I'm just going to change into my home directory. We want to set up our Git command line environment to have some certain properties. So specifically, we want to tell it what our name is and what our email address is. So the email address will be used to communicate with you. So you want to pick something that you're going to check and that you don't mind, getting a little bit of traffic anytime you're contributing to a repository. It won't be too bad. So copy this and type. So it's git config global username, and then just type your name. And hit enter. And I just hit Command C because I've already Control C because I've already done this. And if you want to check your name after you do that, you can enter this command, git config, and then just without the name, it will print out the value. And then same thing here. You can enter this line, and you want to change this to your email address in quotes. And then again, you can confirm by typing this command here. So I'm going to leave that alone. I don't need to show them how my settings are configured, but if you enter that, you'll be able to see what email address you just entered. Okay. So any questions on that? Did that work? Okay. So on the command line, I like to have all my Git repositories in one place. You might decide you want to have things located all over your computer, but for me, I like to have it in one place. So I made a directory in my home directory called Git. So you can just type make directory. If you're in a home folder, you can type just Git, or just to be sure, you can say make directory home/Git. And again, I've already done that, so I'm not going to enter, but hit enter. That will make a directory called Git in your home folder, and then we're going to cd Git. So yours will be empty, but mine has some stuff in there already. So we're going to now do a few examples of using the command line Git and showing how it interacts with GitHub. So the first example we're going to cover is contributing to an existing repository. So this code is in the Git handbook, but I've made some changes here. So what we're going to do is download the Hello World repository that we just created from GitHub down to our laptop. And so first thing we want to do is we want to clone that repository. So we're going to copy that command. I'm going to paste it here. And we have to change this my username to your actual username, because so whatever your username is, enter that here. Don't enter mine. you're going to clone your Hello World repository that's on GitHub to your machine. So add your username, then hit enter. It's going to clone into Hello World. If you type ls, you'll see, you should just see Hello World. So now we're going to cd Hello World. Now we're going to use git branch to make a branch. So we're going to type git branch, and we can just call this my branch. And then we're going to do git checkout, which is going to switch to the branch. So that so we call checkout. That means I'm going to check out that branch. I'm going to work on that branch. So git checkout my branch. Okay, so now we can see what's in here. We only have this README file. We can type git status. It says there's nothing to commit. We are on branch, my branch, and there's nothing to commit. The working tree is clean. So we can now open up the README file. We can try open. If you're like me, your Markdown files will automatically open in this Markdown program, but maybe you're also using Nano or Atom, so you could type Atom if you have that alias set up, or you could, however you're going to edit a Markdown file, do that. So let's say we want to change this to let's call this topic 1 and topic 2. Just make some changes. You can save it just like we normally would save a file. Just, you know, Command S, for example. Close that file. So we just changed a couple lines of that README file. We're also going to create a git ignore file. So we're going to type touch.gitignore. So now we don't see that file, but if we type ls-a, we see there is a .gitignore file, and then there's also this .git directory. It's colored because I have it set up so that directories are colored. So this is the directory that's tracking everything in the repository. We don't really need to worry about that, but it's there. So we want to now add these files. We want to stage them for commit. So we're going to type git add, and we can type readme. We can type one file, or we can also type multiple files. So we can also type git ignore. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to type git status. It doesn't matter if you already hit enter, but the point I wanted to make was that before I added those, you can see there are changes not staged for commit. So readme was modified. It says use git add to update that file, or git checkout -- file to discard those changes. Basically undo them. And then there's an untracked file. So we want to add the file that's been modified, and we want to add the file that's not being tracked yet. So we're going to type git add readme and .git ignore, and we can use tab completion, and I'll show you a little bit later how you can make Git more savvy with tab completion. Okay, so we're going to add those files and then hit enter. And now if we type git status, those files have turned green. So now they're being tracked and they're staged for commit. So we have one new file and we have one modified file. Now we can type a commit. So we're going to do git commit -m, and we want to say what we did. It's very important to write a very descriptive but concise commit message. So we're going to do git commit -m. If we leave the -m out, it will prompt us with our text editor of choice like Emacs or Vim or Nano, but I find it easiest just to write a one-line description of what the commit contains, just in quotes. So we're going to say added.getignore and edited readme.md. So it's going to then say, yep, we added and edited those files. Or sorry, that's our commit message, and say 2 files changed, 2 insertions, 2 deletions. Now we're ready to push these changes back to GitHub. So we can go to git push -- set upstream. So this is going to say that we'll cover this in a minute, but origin is the name of the repository on GitHub. So it's the name of, anytime we push or pull, we have to refer to our local branch, which is my branch, and then the remote. In fact, I'll just tell you right now. You can type remote-v. Oh, git remote-v, and it's going to tell us what the remotes are called. So we have origin to fetch or pull, and we have origin to push. So, and this is your username and then hello world. So this tells you what the remote location is. So when we do git push, we want to specify, one way we can specify is to say git upstream origin. So it's going to push my branch to origin. So this is now communicating with the internet. It's going to push these changes up. So now what we can do is we can go to GitHub / well, we can just go to GitHub, and you can go on your repositories are listed over here on the right. We can click on Hello World, and it says your recently pushed branches, my branch less than a minute ago, and now you can see there's now a new branch here that we just made. We didn't make this on GitHub. We made this locally, but when we pushed those changes, it now pushed the branch and it pushed those changes to GitHub, and now we can see them. So we can say, all right, let's issue a pull request on that branch, and yep, let's open a pull request. And now it's going to check, says, yep, you can merge it. Sweet, let's merge it. Looks good. We're going to confirm. So now, again, we can go back to Hello World. This is now we're on master, and now these are called topic 1 and topic 2 instead of heading 1 and heading 2. We also now have a .gitignore file. And also next to those 2 files, it's the commit message that we typed. So we can clearly see, okay, this is with the commit where we added the gitignore and edited the readme. And if we click on that commit, you can see showing 2 changed files. So there's the .gitignore. It doesn't have any lines in it, so there's no changes. But then on the readme, you can see these 2 lines that we changed, and it actually highlights the word that we changed. It's a very handy way to see what was changed. Okay. So that was contributing to an existing repository. Now we want to start a new repository and publish it to GitHub. So we're in Hello World now, so we're gonna type cd ... So now we're in our username /git. and we're going to make a new directory called my repo. So this is going to be a whole new directory where we want to start adding files to make our own new repository. So in this case, we need to initialize this as a Git repository. So we're going to type git init my repo, and it's going to say it initialized this this repo, which means it's going to create that .git file. So if we do cd my repo and then do ls-a, you're going to see it created that .git file or directory. Okay. So now we want to create a README file. So we want to have the first line be a hash sign and a space, and then a my repo, which is a markdown top level title. So we're going to do that. We're going to append that, which is, we could have just done one arrow. We're going to do 2 readme.md, and since Git isn't aware of this file, if we type git status, so the git status will, this is important, it refers to the repository you're in. So the status, the output of this command will change depending on which directory we're in. So if we're at the top level, which is my repo, or the top level of hello world, which would be hello world, or anywhere below that top level, it will give us the status of the repository that we're currently in. So we're in my repo, so it knows that we have this untracked file, readme.md. So we're going to git add readme.md, and then if we want to check our status again, we can now say now it's changes to be committed. So we're going to say now git commit -m added readme to initial commit. Now, if we type git remote-v, there are no remotes set up. So we have to specify where this repo is going to be on GitHub. So we're going to say git remote add origin. So we're looking at our remote directories, which means on GitHub. We want to add a new one. We want to call it origin, and it's going to have the URL https://github.com/your username. So type your username /myrepo.git. So this is going to create a URL, or it's going to say when we do push these changes, it's going to go to this location, and it will create this repository on your GitHub. Likely it will, at least the first time, will ask you for a password as well. Git push-u. So now U is a shorthand for upstream, for the set upstream, and you actually, it's not, I think it's not even required, but for this tutorial, we'll keep that. Origin master. So we are on branch master because we never created a branch. So that's fine. You don't have to create a branch. You can work on master. So we're on master. We're going to push the changes from master to the master on GitHub, and that before I type that, actually I'm going to type git remote-v, and you can see that we created that those URLs when we type that command. So now we can type git push-u origin master and it failed. What did I do? Yeah, maybe I thought, for some reason, yeah, you're right. I thought I didn't, for some reason I thought I didn't have to do that. But let's see. Yeah, I must have done, when I did this yesterday, I must have done it this way. This isn't the way I typically make repositories, so I was getting myself confused. So let's just not make anything, we won't make a README or anything, we'll just create the repository. Yeah, okay. I forgot to add that to the instructions. So we've already done all this stuff, right? Basically what happens is if you create a new repo on GitHub, it's going to give you these instructions. So we already did the appending, this name of my repo to README. We already did git init. We added the file. We committed it. We added the remote. So now when we run this git push -u, yay! Sorry about that. So yeah, you do have to create it on GitHub before it will recognize it. So if we go to go and look at the repo, it's just a very basic, got the name of the README file in the README, and that's it. Okay. So there's a couple other examples here that I won't cover, we don't have time for today, but one is if there's an existing branch on GitHub that you want to contribute to, there's some instructions for how to do that. And then there's examples for how to fork an existing repository. So if you have someone else's repository, you can fork it on GitHub. So now you have the URL that you would want to. So for example, if you wanted to fork the material for this class, let's say you wanted to have a local copy, and every time I made an update, you wanted to just update it, and maybe you wanted to suggest changes, or maybe you just wanted to keep it updated. You could fork this repository, and then clone it, and then periodically you could pull upstream master to get the latest version of what I've done. And then there's some other instructions for how you could make changes and push them to your branch, or you could even issue a pull request against the master, which would be my version. And there's a few other commands that you would come in handy with some of this stuff. So if you want to delete, we saw how to delete a branch on GitHub. If you want to delete your local branch, or you want to delete it, your branch on GitHub, but do it from the command line, there's a command for that. We saw git remote v and how that's useful to see existing remotes with the URL after the name. And also you can type git log, which will list the commits. And then there's a few commands called git stash and git stash pop, which will, instead of committing changes, if you made some changes, you can stash them for later, and then to pop reapplies those changes.